Hey everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown. Here, my normal awesome co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo. We have an awesome episode prepared for you guys. It's end of payment plans. I actually don't have any pre-knowledge about this. Andrew picked the subject like normal, and I'm curious what it's about. Payment plans are a big subject in dental. There's payment plans for ortho. There's financing products. Some people make a very large mistake of, instead of doing a financing product, they create their own payment plans in the practice and become the bank. And I think that's a massive mistake. But Andrew, what is end of payment plans?
All right, guys. So this is one of those episodes where I tell you guys about how I always keep an open mind. And when I get new data, I am open to changing my perspective on things. And this is a pretty large change that we're making in my organization, effective January 1, 2026. So, I mean, this is already in effect. And I made this decision very quickly. I literally made this decision the last week of December as I was going through paying down Invisalign lab bills, auditing Invisalign accounts and payment plans. When I had one office and I was the only doctor there, and then even we added an associate and stuff and a second office. But like when we were smaller, this worked for us. So the only thing we've ever done with in-house payment plans was Invisalign. Everything else, payment due in full, they can finance, whatever. But I wanted to lower the barriers. And my thought process was they only get so many aligners at a time. They got to come back. This treatment's going to take a while. It's going to work out. And for a long time, it was actually working very well. Our default rate was extremely low. And we were definitely making way more money than had we financed it and taken that haircut with the merchant fees. So it really was. And so this is my point now. I'm not telling you not to do Invisalign payment plans in your office, but I'm telling you, you need to constantly analyze the data. And I think as you grow, it may make less sense to do that. So there's a couple reasons for this. Even aside from the status of the default rate and everything else, the bigger your organization gets, the more important cash flow is. And I've always been big on cash and cash flow, and cash is king. But I think once you reach a certain point and you really just realize, I mean, guys, our monthly credit card bill is usually at least $500,000. So the 20th of every month, I have to make a $500,000 payment. That's massive. Our payrolls. So we split our office payrolls every other week. So like basically like half our offices are one week, half are the next week. And we do our doctor production payouts as well as all other team bonuses and stuff. It's always the last payroll of the month. So, 1 week it's the last payroll for one set of offices, 1 week it's the last payroll for the other set. We can have payrolls that are $300,000-$400,000 easily 1 week after the other. So if you think about it, 20th of the month, $500,000 credit card bill, and then oftentimes that week or the next week or whatever, $300,000 to $400,000 payroll, and then the next week, $300,000 to $400,000 payroll. So over $1 million can come out of our account just from those things. And obviously there's other ACHs going on, and we've got some secondary cards we use for some stuff. But just on those three main things, over a 2-week period, we can have over $1 million come out of our bank account. So you think cash flow is like maybe a little bit important to us. The payment plans, even if they're working well, we're getting paid. So we were doing $395 down, $400 a month, and it did work. It did lower barriers for patients. However, if you think about it, if we're typically, because we run sales, and we're typically charging between $3,500 and $4,500 for Invisalign, you're at like 10 months of payments basically. So instead of getting front loaded with all that cash flow, we were spreading it out. And fortunately, we've never run into a cash flow issue, but I've become more aware of it. So I'm doing my best to front load cash flow on everything. And at the same time, I'm doing my best to negotiate net payment terms with vendors and stuff. So basically we're spreading out payments, slowing down payments, and we're speeding up revenue coming in. And that's just making us better and better. So this was already kind of a little bit of an idea I think I had in my head. But when I went and I paid a bunch of our Invisalign lab bills that were due, and every time I pay a lab bill, before I pay it, I audit that patient's account to see where they're at with their payment plan. And I would estimate about 80% of our patients were doing in-house payment plans for Invisalign. The other 20% either did traditional financing or paid in full. So of that 80% of Invisalign patients, again, normally we had traditionally seen about a 5% default rate. Our default rate had climbed substantially. We were up to probably about 15%. So that 3 times increase in default rate. And I think the main reason is just our organization's so much bigger. There's so many more people that have to learn and keep track of all this stuff that it was not. And we've done trainings and retrainings. I realized at that point in time, this just isn't working anymore. It's slowing our cash flow. We're getting more bad AR from it. And it's adding a ton of tracking, like extra work for my teams. So added work for the teams, slowing down our cash flow, creating more bad AR. And I wasn't even through all of the lab bills. And I texted our COO and I said, we're not doing Invisalign payment plans anymore. And he's like, I think that could be a good idea. I was like, no, like we're not having a discussion about it. We're not meeting as an executive team. Like, this is an executive CEO decision. It is bad for our business. We are cutting out Invisalign payment plans. And he's like, okay, like, let's do it. I messaged our executive team then, like the whole team, our CFO, CSO, regional manager. And I was like, all right, guys, here's the deal. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And I thought I'd get some pushback. Everyone was on board. So it's like one of those things where I think everyone already kind of understood that this maybe wasn't the best system that we had in place, but like nobody spoke up to me to tell me like, yeah, I think this is bad for us. But yeah, so again, everyone agreed. Yes, I think that's the right move. Yep. Like, let's do this, whatever else. So I sent out an email to our entire organization on January 2nd. And I said, hey guys, big change here happening. This is what's happening. This is why it's happening. And so this is what I decided to set in place, because I still want to keep barriers low for patients. And I wanted to incentivize those people who could pay in full on their own to do that versus having to finance where they're, we're taking a merchant fee, often anywhere from 5 to 15%. And so here's what I did. And I think this is working really nicely so far. It's something we kind of ran in December as part of a special, but if patients prepay in full for Invisalign with cash, credit card, debit card, check, they get their retainers for free. So we don't include retainers in the Invisalign package, but I figured at this point in time, because here's the thing, we don't send out for their retainers till they finish Invisalign, which usually is at least, anywhere from 6 to 12 months, at least. I'd say 6 is on the fast end, probably 8 to 12. And then we don't get billed. We're on 6-month net payment terms. We don't get billed for that retainer for 6 months after that. So the actual lab bill, which is like $300, the lab bill we have to pay on the retainers, we don't actually have to pay that for like 18 months after they start their Invisalign treatment. And they're prepaying for everything. And they're prepaying with a method where we don't get, and we pass on credit card fees. So they're paying with a method where we don't get dinged with any expense. And the patients are super happy because they're getting a discount on Invisalign and they're getting free retainers. So I think that was kind of a win-win for everybody there. And if they can't or don't want to pay in full one of those methods, we do offer financing. HFD is kind of our number one choice right now, especially for Invisalign. They've been a good partner.
The very best for Invisalign.
Yep. So that is typically what we'll go with for Invisalign financing, and that's what we recommend patients apply for, all that good stuff. They can do that, and they'll still get whatever Invisalign special discounts we're running. It's just the free retainer package. It's like a cash discount, bonus, whatever it is. So they don't qualify for the free retainers if they do the other financing. So those are our 2 payment plan options going forward. I don't know. I mean, we just started this, so I can't tell you guys what it's going to do to our Invisalign numbers. It is very possible they could go down. However, I think the benefit of front loading all the cash flow, taking all that work off my team from tracking the payment plans, and reducing that bad AR because we're getting paid up front, so we're not worried about it. I think even if our Invisalign total number of cases goes down a little bit, I think the benefits are going to greatly outweigh that. So obviously, I'm going to do everything I can to keep our marketing moving forward, both internal and external. And the goal is to maintain or grow our Invisalign base where we hit, I guess they just changed the tiers again. So we hit Blue Diamond for the first time, but it's different than it used to be. So my goal is to at least maintain or grow our Invisalign base while also improving cash flow, reducing bad AR, reducing work for the team. And I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes. Again, if you're listening now and you're doing Invisalign payment plans, please don't just go and cut them out. Like, analyze your own data first. Like, this is one of those things where I think there's not a one size fit all. I think it depends on your practice, your model, how everything is going. If you're smaller and your goal is to lower barriers and just do more Invisalign, and you're not having, $1 million weeks where you've got all that money coming out of your bank account, it may make more sense for you to keep the payment plan right now. But it may not. So like, it's like, know your numbers, like do your analysis. I've been tracking these payment plans for years. I mean, basically since we started doing it. And I just, unfortunately, more recently things have gotten worse. So I think for a while it really was a good solution for us. I just think at this point in time, it is no longer that solution. And I would recommend doing this for everything in your practice. Like, just because, don't set and forget anything. Don't come up with a policy and say, okay, that policy's done. You need to, every single quarter, every single year, maybe monthly for certain things, you need to analyze the data. You need to see how things have been going, and you need to reflect and say, is this strategy the best for my office right now, or do we need a pivot?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things of that. One, with the retainer thing, what percentage of patients make it all the way to the retainer? Like, some doc right now is sitting there going, I don't want to give the retainer away. Well, if you do 100 Invisalign cases, how many people make it all the way to the end of the retainer? I mean,
I would say the vast majority, especially,
but there's a percentage that don't.
Small percentage.
Is there? Okay. Because a lot of docs I talk about how they don't have true implant compliance and the people fall off, and they don't. Now, listen, you might have a better culture.
I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm saying that's a pretty, and I'll tell you when it normally happens. It normally happens with the patients on payment plans because they want to stop paying. And so they just stop paying and stop showing up. Those are usually the ones who don't take it to complete. Patients that prepay in full, whether via traditional route or financing, almost always finish their Invisalign. Almost.
I have another question. You're contributing some of this to like the scale of the practices now. Do you think any of these defaults have to do with economic conditions right now? Because, inflation has totally pressured the family. Like, is this like in a better economic situation? Like, if we go from 7% interest rates to 4% interest rates and things get better, do you think you might bring this back at some point?
So I'm going to answer both parts of the question. First part, I absolutely think it's multifactorial. I do think the scale of our organization is part of it, because I think tracking has gotten more difficult with all the offices, all the personnel, all the patients. So I think that's part of it. But I do think there's other factors as well, and I'm sure the current economic condition is one of those factors also. To answer your second part of the question, no. Even if economic conditions improve, I have no intent. Now, again, this is me saying this now. I'll analyze the data. If, this time next year, if I say, wow, our Invisalign plummeted last year, removing the in-house payment plans killed us, then I may reevaluate again. That is being a true leader of your business, is never being afraid to say, hey, I was wrong on this one, and to pivot and to change direction. So my mind is always open. At this point in time, as long as our Invisalign numbers don't drop dramatically, I have no intention of going back because of the front-loading cash flow aspect. So that's why I said, I didn't just make this decision because of the higher default rate. I also made this decision because how it was delaying our cash flow. And that was probably almost as big of a factor as the default rate.
If you think about like the economic issues and then the data of it, I think we have to clarify to docs, like, over on my side of what I do, I'll have docs say things like, well, 90% of these patients are bad, or, something about the phone calls. And they say they analyzed it. And then they're analyzing it as like a feeling or a thinking in their head. And then we'll go with them and quantify it and count at a granular level and look at it. Guys, when Dr. Vallo says he analyzes the data, he looks at physical numbers and reports and talks to his team. If you're saying you analyze the data, and that for you is going to your office manager and saying, hey, can you tell me what's going on with this? And then they come back and say, oh, it's this. No one analyzed data. Like, it just didn't happen. Analyzing data is looking at it at a granular level, or reports that kind of report about the granular level, and making intelligent decisions based on that data. If you don't have that, then you're not analyzing the data. And then when you're making decisions, you start to make decisions kind of with a gambler's mindset instead of an investor's mindset. And Andrew makes his decisions with an investor's mindset of, what does the chart say? What does the data say? Looking at historical trends, where should we be? What can we change? Looking at historical trends, what did we change? And then how long did that ripple take in our system to show data? Because sometimes you can make a change based on the data, and the next month you're like, well, this is what happened. We got to change again. No, that ripple might take 4 or 5 months to see what the actual change was. You can't be changing things all the time. You can't be making decisions off of hard data analyzation. You know, if you're going off of, well, my office manager said this, and it's unfounded. Like, you know, here at Energize, I could get in trouble for this all the time. I'll be in a meeting, I'll say, well, it's this. And then Ryan or one of the C-suite guys will go, well, did you quantify it? I'll go, no. And then I got to go quantify it. Okay, that's a real conversation that happens over at Energize all the time. We say, did you quantify it? Guys, that's what Andrew's doing with data. Like, you just have to understand, like, analyzing the data is a very deliberate, intentional thing.
So, guys, this is going to be a shorter episode. I think we're going to wrap it up just about here. Again, I hope you took something from this, like every episode. But the main point here again is not whether or not to do Invisalign payment plans. Although that is something, if you're doing Invisalign, I do think you should look at that. And if you're not doing in-house plans, you should absolutely have multiple financing options. If you're not signed up with HFD, you should probably sign up with HFD. HFD
is it.
They've taken over as our number one. So we've got, and again, no sponsorship. Just like everything else, it's never perfect. You know, I talk with one of the, main guys at HFD quite often about, things that, so I'll break it down for you guys. Here's what we love about HFD. And I know this isn't an episode about it, and I'll actually probably have them on at some point to talk some more, but I at least wanted to give you guys, since we're talking about it now, why it's our favorite. So I love HFD in that much higher approval rates for patients, and typically more approval amounts, and typically lower down payments than a lot of our other, some of our other financing options. So typically lower down payments, higher approval amounts, higher approval percentage. The only thing I don't like about HFD, and it's something I've talked to them about, and supposedly they're trying to work on a solution for us, but they are a little bit slower to fund than the other financing options. Yes. So, and this is, and they actually, it's funny, when I reach out to them about this a couple months ago, they said, you're the first person to ever tell us this. And I'm like, well, I'm probably one of the few dental owners that actually acts like a business owner and follows cash flow and, all that other stuff. But I made them realize why it was important to me. And supposedly they're working to see if they can, improve some funding times. But basically, care credit, cut and dry, 48 hours, almost every single time, 48 hours. But at least I know, hey, 2 days later, we're getting our care credit funding. And that's, from the time you approve, close out the transaction to the time it actually hits your bank account. Cherry, that one is typically 24 to 48 hours. So depending on timing, sometimes Cherry will hit our account the next day, which I love that. And Cherry actually was our number one option for a long time, but there just weren't getting enough people approved. 24, 48 hours for Cherry. Great. That's the best. Sunbit, honestly, we use it so infrequently now. I really don't know what their funding time looks like. I probably should. But it's not a major player for us anymore. HFD, our number one by far financing option. They are typically 2 to 3 days. And when I say typically, I would say typically 3. So sometimes it comes in 48 hours, more often than not, it's 72 hours. And sometimes it extends beyond 3 days. And usually when it does, they can't tell me why. Oh, everything looks good here. Yeah, it should fund tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, well, why are we at 4 days now? Because now we're at 96 hours. So again, we always get paid, and I don't want to bash them because they are a good partner. But I wanted you guys to be aware, because again, this is a no bias show. Nobody pays us. There's no sponsors. So I want to tell you guys exactly how it is. I love HFD. We'll continue to be great partners with them. I would love them that much more if they can work on their funding times. Even if they, I get it. They probably can't, whatever Cherry's doing to do the 1 to 2 days, they probably can't get to that time frame, and that's fine. But could we at least get to consistent 48 hours, or at the very least, hey, it's always within 72 hours. So it's never extending beyond that. Because one, again, I'm all about cash flow. I want that cash immediately, especially if we've got big payments coming up. And two, it makes more tracking work for, my CFO, our accountants, because they're trying to match up open dental reports with payments. And when things get delayed out further, now it's looking like things are missing, and they're having to try to match them up and track them down and all that. So it's adding more work. It's slowing cash flow. All that said, still 100% worth it because of how much better they are at getting these approvals done. We would not have done basically $19 million in revenue last year if it wasn't for HFD. And I say that. So that's where I'm saying I have love for them, because our other financing partners were not approving enough patients to get that done.
Basically, end of payment plans at Dr. Vallo's group. It was very useful at one point. At scale, it might not be. In your practice, it still might be, might not be. There can be lots of contributing factors. You guys do a hard analyzation of your numbers and figure out what works best for you. Hey guys, thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, share, follow, give us a review. Below us in the description is the link for the Dental Unfiltered Study Club. You can click on it and join. It's a WhatsApp chat, and we periodically dump webinars in there from some of our subject matter experts. All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks, guys.